Good evening to everyone. We'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to our Midweek Bible study. I have just a few announcements this evening before we begin with a word of prayer. Most of what I have here, the new announcements, are, of course, all prayer requests. And we definitely want to remember Teresa Snapp's father, Fred, as he's being put on hospice, and also Ron Lawson's sister, who's also under hospice. We ask that you pray for them and their families. It's always a difficult time during those types of stages. We also want to remember Judy Alford, Carol Rice's sister-in-law. She has a sister named Carol who isn't expected to survive the night, so we definitely pray for her and her family. And also we want to remember Tom Brown's family and his passing, and all those friends, family, co-workers, all those who knew him. It's always a difficult thing to go through. Seems like we've experienced a lot of loss here lately. So definitely want to remember all those who are struggling. If you'll bow with me, we'll be open with prayer. God, we love you. We thank you so much for this another day that you have blessed us with, for the ability to get out and to go and to do and to work and all the things that we've been able to do today. We're so thankful for that, but we're thankful even more for this opportunity we have to come into this house, to fellowship with one another, with like-minded people, to study from your word and to come to you in prayer, God. We ask that you go with us through this service tonight, through this Bible study. All of those who are teaching classes, help them to relay those messages, God, in a way that their audience can understand it. God, we're mindful now of all those who are on our prayer list, for Teresa Snapp's father and for Ron Lawson's sister and Carol Rice's sister-in-law's sister, and especially for the Tom Brown family and for the Sebastian family and so many others, God, that are dealing with the loss of loved ones and dealing with medical trials and all of those types of things, God. We ask that you bless each and every one of them, and if it bring comfort and peace to all those families. Be with all of us as we struggle with different things. We ask that you bless each and every one of us as we go through the ups and downs of life. God, forgive us when we fail you, because we do fail you every day. We're so thankful that we can come to you, that we can ask for that forgiveness, that we can have that hope one day of salvation with you. God, continue to bless us. All these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
When the trumpet shall sound and the dead shall arise, and the splendors immortal shall envelop the skies, when the angel of death shall no longer destroy, and the dead shall awaken in the morning of joy, in the morning of joy.
It is so proper that that song be sung tonight. At least it is for me and Kevin. Now, you know what real joy is? And you think about when you think in your mind, what is real joy and how have you seen it expressed? Now, you just think about that a minute and you put an image or two in your head. Let me tell you about the most fantastic image of joy that I've seen in a long time. Kevin and I, last night, were over at the Grimes' house because today is Joseph's 25th birthday. And they had a little party for him at the house last night with the two of us. And by the way, last night the Grimeses also became great-grandparents. So you just know about that. Born sometime after we left, and I think the name is Lucian. I believe that was right. Is that right, Kevin? Now, sometimes we don't have the joy we ought to have. So, for instance, you get a nice 50-inch screen TV, and you go visit your friend that has a 65-inch. When you got yours, yes. You saw his, oh, right? Because the bigger, the better, the more powerful, whatever it is. Now that's where real joy comes. Now, let me tell you where real joy comes. Last night, Joseph opened gifts, and here's what he got. I don't know the exact numbers, but I can tell you close to it. He got 4 sticks of deodorant, about 15 toothpastes, about 6 or 7, 8 bars of soap. And he was ecstatic. He was jumping around, laughing, hitting his leg. And I mean, you had thought that he had just been given the keys to the kingdom. He had been. Because he takes joy in those basic, small things. It doesn't have to be something big, something grand. That was real joy. Daniel said we've had a number of people to go through traumatic times recently. It's very true. How do you find real joy? Paul said to the Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians 5, rejoice evermore. How do you do that? You do that because of the song we just sang. That day. The vision I had from last night of how Joseph reacted to those seemingly insignificant gifts, I think might be my reaction in the morning of joy. But that's only if I can rejoice now, if I can appreciate the now, and I can live now and not allow things that try to take my joy away from me. I just don't allow it to happen so that I'll be ready when the morning of joy comes. If you've not obeyed the gospel, if you're not a child of God, you have no hope. You can't have joy. If you are a baptized believer who has let something or someone steal your joy, take the message and the lesson from Joseph and say, no, I'm going to hold on to mine now, and I'm looking forward to that morning. We want to be joyful people. We want to help you as we stand and sing together. We need to hand out outlines. We need to pick up microphones. You know, the regular stuff that we always do. What was that? What does the sync button mean on here? It's flashing blue. Okay. Huh. I wonder what I'm syncing with. Oh, the up here? Blow up. 10, 9. You want these or that? Okay.
No, that,
good job.
You can have that.
Passing out outlines? Yes. Hello, Cam. Hey, hey. There we go. Now that's joy too. That's the other expression of joy right there. Okay, Kevin's walking around with outlines. I'm surprised. Anybody needing one? Okay. We can stick them in the back. If nobody needs them, we'll. All right, we're going to be in Judges 19, 20, and 21. If you've not, pardon? Oh, no. We're not going to see anything good tonight. Nothing. But we're also, it's probably one of the strangest sections of Scripture. Man, what we're going to hit tonight is just, if you haven't read it in a while, it may shock you. So, if you want to go ahead and look down at the question at the bottom on the back, you can be thinking about what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. This is the last class on the Judges. Sunday, we start a new series. The month of December is going to be dedicated to the life of Jesus. In our class on Sunday morning, there will be a historical look at the section of Jesus' life that we're covering. So we're going to be covering prophecy, birth, his mission, his death, his resurrection, ascension. However that's done in 4 weeks. We're going to have a historical, factual class, getting the background, understanding what's going on in there. The sermon time will be a lesson or a sermon from that section. And then Wednesday night, there's going to be practical application. How do we take what we just learned about Jesus in this section, and what does it mean to us today? How does it change us, or what can we do with it? So that'll be the whole month of December. So I think that'll be a good study. Now, to understand the text that we're about to study, there are a few things that are necessary. Number one, this section from 17 through 21 has 4 statements. 4 times it says, "There was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own eyes." Now, I recall to you, if you have it, you can look at it, but I want to bring to your attention a reminder. When we were looking at chapter 17 and 18, I told you that the likelihood is that 17 through 21 is material that happened before Judges, between Judges and Joshua. Now, why it was chosen that way, I don't know, except for the idea maybe that it was simply saying the land has been conquered, now who's ruling? And so he just immediately went into the Judges and started talking about it. But then there's this section, and these 5 chapters, tell a story that helps us understand what happened in the time of the Judges. Chapter 17 told us, how did idolatry come into Ephraim? Chapter 18, how did idolatry come into the tribe of Dan? Chapter 19 tells about some shameful things that the Benjamites did. That's what we're going to be talking about. Chapter 20 is about judgment on the tribe of Benjamin. And then how in chapter 21, how the tribe of Benjamin was saved from total destruction. So if we keep in mind that the likelihood is that all of these events happened prior to, I think it'll help understand a couple of things. Now, last week or Sunday, I guess it was, someone came to me and posed a question I hadn't thought of, at least not to research well, and that is, what was the tabernacle doing during all this time? We see the tabernacle that Moses told the people to build, and of course they carried it around, in the time of the wilderness and the wandering. And where was the tabernacle? Well, let me give you a couple of potentials. If you look at chapter 20 and verse number 18, then the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God to inquire of God. Now, the New King James translates that. Does any of your versions, does it say Bethel? There you go. Likelihood, they went up to Bethel. Maybe that's because the tabernacle was in Bethel. Or Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 12, through the prophet, as God was talking about his retribution or his vengeance on the people of God who had done so wrong. Look at verse 12. Go now to my place, which was in Shiloh, where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it because of the wickedness of my people Israel. Maybe the tabernacle was in Shiloh. Now, Shiloh was about, I think, 8 miles from the city of Bethel. But if you look also at 1 Samuel chapter 7, there is this proposal too about the tabernacle. Talking about Samuel, verse 15, Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. He went from year to year on a circuit to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, and judged Israel in all of those places. The suggestion was, maybe, that the tabernacle moved to the place where the judge was. Maybe that's where the tabernacle went. It was a movable structure, and therefore it could be done. Now, it seems to me, given the dimensions and what you see about the tabernacle in Moses putting it together, that would have been an undertaking, either way, to move it that many times. But apparently so I don't know where the tabernacle was, but I'm going to say here are 3 possibilities that make sense to me, and I don't know that we have a solid understanding of it, but maybe there are some other things that we can learn about it in that way. Now, we know that the Levite priests were scattered throughout the land of Israel. Joshua 21, when they're handing out the inheritance into the promised land, you'll notice all of the cities that Levites were given. They didn't get a tribe. They were given cities in every tribe. And in that chapter, they asked God to tell them, and they would do what God wanted them to do to figure it out, know His will. And in this tribe, they got 13 cities. And in this tribe, they got 10 cities. And you can see that these Levites then were spread out through the entire land of Israel. In Judges 19, verse 11, we begin what happens here, this event that we're going to talk about, happens in a place called Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. Now, this name, Jebus, became named Jerusalem, but it was a time before Jerusalem was conquered. If you go back to chapter 1, verses 7 and 8, 11 and 21, and then Joshua 15:63, you find that the city of, well, especially in the Judges, the city's called Jerusalem at the beginning of the Judges. But here it's Jebus. So that, again, this is more information that seems to say chapter 17 through 21 ought to be over here as a way of introducing the rest of the book of the Judges. So that's just one more piece of evidence for that. Microphone time. Here we go. Ralph is on the move. I see him coming.
Jerusalem wasn't actually taken from the Jebusites until David.
Yes, but it was conquered part-time, but the Jebusites The text says that they never did run them out. And it was not until David when they were fully eradicated. Yes, from Jerusalem, right. But and I don't know why that is. In other words, if God told them to conquer all the people, and he did, and they couldn't run the Jebusites out. In fact, over and over, they couldn't. The what? The wall? Well, that could be, but the way, let me see, go back to chapter 1, what did I say? Verses 7 and 8, starting there. Okay. You have in verse 8, the children of Judah fought against Jerusalem and took it. They struck it with the edge of the sword and set the city on fire. So they took it, but they didn't take it. Because in some way, and maybe there was a piece of the city that was so fortified they couldn't do it until the time of David. I don't know. Or maybe the children of Israel just didn't do their job. The whole point of Joshua and Judges is they didn't do what they were told to do in the first place, which is eradicate the land. And so verse 11, let's see. They went against the inhabitants of Deber. Let's see, that was not it. 21. Yeah, the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Jerusalem. So the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day, which is fascinating. Now, I don't know how, again, that happens. But when David comes along, he finally frees the city of Jerusalem, which is why then the tabernacle and the ark of the covenant came back finally to Jerusalem, and that's where it was going to be, and the temple was built and so forth. But for the time period of Joshua and all through the Judges, then into Saul and up until David, Jerusalem was not the main city for the temple or the tabernacle because it was not fully theirs. In fact, part of our story today is because of that. So let's go into chapter 19. Now, here's how the story develops, and it's not a good one. Not only is it not a good one, it's confusing. When you go into some Old Testament texts and you have this view of how God is and who God is and how God does things, you read some of them and you go, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And I'm having a hard time putting all this together. So this text is going to need a little help. So let's see if we can walk through it. Now, here is a Levite who decided to take a concubine. Well, I went to check out what concubine was just because I've always, I don't know about you, but I've always had a negative impression of the word concubine. It's almost like you have wives, then you have a concubine, and it's sort of like not a wife, but a woman on the side. That's just negative to me. Well, concubine apparently was an actual wife. And the reason they called it concubine, and I know that because in this text, it talks about this concubine that he took. He talks about his father-in-law. It says that the Levite was her husband, so they were married. And there was not an unmarried relationship going on when you talk about concubine. But the difference is, a wife came to be through the process of a dowry given to the family, and there were stipulations regulating inheritance through that relationship. But a concubine was not secured by a dowry. So the Levite didn't have to pay anything to the dad to get her. Number two, there were no guarantees with respect to inheritance in the future. but she enjoyed the privileges of living in the household and being cared for that way. So there's your difference between what we commonly know as wife and what we see as concubine. And so I feel a whole lot better understanding concubine that way than I did before, because it just didn't feel right at all. Now, verses 3 and 9 show the validity of her as a wife. Now, what happened is she decided to leave, and she played the harlot. She prostituted herself. She was gone, went home to be with Dad for 4 months. And the Levite decided, I want her back. And so he went down to her father's house to bring her back. And it took him how many days? I think it was the 5th day when he finally could leave, because every day the dad would say, can't you stay just one more time? Make your soul or heart merry and stay the night. And he would do this over and over and over. Finally, that's it. Nope, we're leaving. We're gone. And he finally headed out, and he lodged in a place, city called Gibeah. Now, if you go back to that Jebus, notice what he said. He came opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. With him were the 2 saddled donkeys, his concubine with him. They were near Jebus, and the day was far spent, and the servant said to his master, come, please, let us turn aside to this city of the Jebusites and lodge in it. He said, nope, we're not going to live in a city for the night where it's not the people of God are not. It's foreigners, not going to do it. And so they went on to a place called Gibeah, but they couldn't find anybody to house them. And so they're out there in the courtyard. And an old man came in from the field and saw them there, and he said, why are you here? And the Levites said, well, we have the donkeys, we have the provisions for them, we have hay and fodder, we have wine and bread for ourselves, my servant, my concubine, and me. And so, but nobody let us come stay in their house. And he said, well, you can come to my house. No, you're not staying in the courtyard. What's that remind you of? No. Who in particular? Lot. When he went into Sodom, Lot came and found found the men of God in the courtyard. And they were going to stay the night. Oh, no, you're not. Because he knew who the people of Sodom were. In fact, then and now, they came around and said, you bring that man out. We want to know him carnally. They wanted to participate in homosexual activities. This is where the story gets crazy. Like in Sodom. Lot offered his daughters to them. They didn't want them. The old man said, no, you're not going to do that to a man that came into my house. Instead, I'm going to give you my virgin daughter and his concubine. Well, he took the concubine. They abused her all night. And then she ended up lying on the doorstep. And the next morning, the Levite got up to leave. And he steps over, as it were, and says, let's go. And she didn't move. She's dead. So he picked her up, and put her on the ride, and took her home. And then he cut her up into 12 pieces and sent a piece to every section of Israel to say, look what the people in Gibeah did to me. I got to tell you, there are a lot of things in there that just bother me to death. The Levite, did he not know she was gone all night? Next morning, he steps over. Can he not tell there's something wrong? What's going on in this story? It's tough. Well, the people of Israel gathered together, chapter 20, and said, all right, we got to fix this. We got to fix this. And they sent out a message. You need to come. We're gonna fight our brethren over there in Benjamin. Well, they get 700? No, 400,000. 400,000 foot soldiers. Because of what happened in Gibeah, 400,000 soldiers throughout Israel showed up to fight. They're ready to go. The Levite told his story, what all had happened. And then they made a pact. They made a vow. Nobody is going home until we fix this situation. We're going to go fight. And they took, as the text says, 1 out of every 10, and 10 out of every 100, and 100 out of every 1,000, 10%. All the way through to make this number. And then we're going to go fight. And once we've eradicated them, whatever is left, whoever is left in Benjamin, because they're just going to Gibeah. We're not going to all of Benjamin necessarily, but we're definitely going to Gibeah. We're not going to give our daughters to intermarry with them. We're making a vow. So they put all this plan together through verse 17, and then we come to verse 18. The children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God to inquire of God. Shall we go up? In other words, should we go fight? The answer was yes, go fight. And they were defeated. Let's see. Since Judah went first, let me see. How many? 18,000 died. So they got together with God again and said, do you want us to go up and fight? And God said, go. And this time they lost, I think, 22,000. So a third time, today, do you want us to go fight? Go fight. And today I will deliver them into your hand. And they did. Now we're going to come back there, but let me finish the story. Well, after they had done all of this, they basically wiped them out. And now, it is fascinating to me. We come to chapter 21, and now all the people of Israel are upset because now Benjamin is lost. Well, that's okay. You destroyed them, and now you're sad that they're lost. They needed to be punished. But they really wanted to save Benjamin. But now we can't go back on our vow. None of us are allowed to give our daughters to them as wives. What are we going to do? Well, they did some research and found out that the men of the city of Jabesh Gilead didn't come to fight. They're not under the vow. We get their daughters. They first punished them for not coming, saved out a bunch of virgin women, passed them out to the men of Benjamin, and there weren't enough to go around. That's just fascinating to me. Just not enough to go around. So what are we going to do? Well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to sit outside. Where was it? What city does it say? Chapter 21. Yeah. There's a yearly festival in Shiloh, north of Bethel, on the east side of the highway from Bethel to Shechem, south of Lebonah. And they said, go hide in the bushes along the way, and when the women come out to celebrate the festival, just steal whichever ones you want. I'm telling you, this story is just strange. It really is. Now, part of it I can answer with no problem. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. There's your answer. These are people doing what they wanted to do without any other regard for anything else. But now we come to the question that we need to think about. And here is the question. Why did God tell the men of Israel to fight against Benjamin and then allow them to be defeated twice? Let's talk about that. Because they did ask. God said, go. So, what thoughts do you have about that? How could God do that? How do we think, well, that's proper judgment? Is there anything God wants us to know about that?
I have a question.
Okay.
First of all, how many soldiers, did you say, or men went up to fight against Benjamin? Did you say?
400,000.
Well, it's interesting.
But,
And
but now 400,000 was the whole group throughout Israel. In the first war, Judah went first, but I don't know that it says how many. It just says that 22,000 were killed of Judah.
Well, I was thinking that you had said about 400,000, because in these first 2 days of battles, they lost 18,000 and 22,000. That's 40,000. That's 10%. It's
is.
almost like a tithe. And when you think about it, when the Levite cut up his concubine's body into 12 pieces, one of those pieces would have gone to Benjamin.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's very true.
And it was a call to arms for everyone, the guilty and the not quite so guilty, but all had sinned and fallen short. And they were going up against their brethren, but they were all guilty.
That's very true. It's very true. The
much.
10%, that's fascinating. I hadn't thought about that. Like a tithe, could be. Over here.
I'll share my perspective
Cool.
on this whole situation,
Yeah.
which is probably different than anybody ever thought about. But this is how I've kind of thought about it. A concubine was a wife, but she was from, I guess, a different social class.
Oh, okay.
And her family was trying to move her up to a higher class, even though they didn't have the dowry
That makes
to
sense.
give. I mean, I think of it as like, if you think about royalty, if they marry a commoner, that's kind of what it was. She wasn't
it.
really worthy to be called a wife, but she was being brought up through the class system.
Makes sense to me.
So what the whole story here makes me think that they're trying to demonstrate how wrong this class system was,
Good.
and that maybe, distributing it out, like Carol said, to all the 12 tribes, we need to come together and show that this class system of treating women as concubines rather than wives is not the way to do things.
That could very well be true. And I will say this for sure, I don't have any doubt about it. A lot of what happens in preparing for the time of the new covenant is God demonstrating, informing, showing how bad things are, so we can show you how things ought to be. And one of the grand transformations historically through Jesus was raising the status of women from property and possession to equality. The new covenant did that. Jesus brought equality between men and women. And all of these events show how terrible women were treated and how Jesus was going to make it better.
The wall of hostility is what.
Yeah, wall hostility down, right?
Yeah, but I was wondering in this. Did you ever punish all of your children? All of them at the same time
Oh,
for anything?
don't recall it.
I have, and so there has been a whole family punishment.
Oh.
My children, that is.
Ah, huh.
I think that might be this. The other thing is, Saul comes around not very much longer.
Right.
I don't know when this happened, but that makes Saul kind of a national man, because I don't know what Saul's lineage is, and we don't really know. He was a wealthy family. But his father and mother could have been any member of the. What actual tribe were they genetically? He was a Benjamite, but
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
but,
I don't.
But what was his true?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
mother, what
if,
was his lineage?
if Saul came from the tribe of Benjamin, which he did, and you've got this situation going on here.
See, we could have never done a thing with Jesus through Saul.
No,
I
we
mean,
couldn't. That's right,
we
because he
never
has
could've.
mixed blood, if you will. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. That is fascinating. Well, right down here.
Going back,
Yeah. There you go.
going back to your question, why did God say go and then allow them to be defeated? It could be that God is getting two birds with one stone.
Okay.
He is showing, first of all, that he's in charge,
Okay.
and he sends them out to fight, and they lose. And it's as if God is saying, we're going to do things my way, and eventually the Benjamites are going to pay. So I don't know, but that's just a possibility.
Well, I think that that's not a possibility. That has to be what it is. He's going to do his things his way, and he doesn't tell us. The text doesn't tell us why he said go and then let them be defeated. One of the things that I was looking for, I hadn't found it yet, when he said for Judah to go first, was there some reason why he wanted to punish Judah? I don't know. I need to go back and look at that again. I didn't find anything, but maybe there's something that he is dealing with in that situation, and we don't know. The concubine was from Judah? Maybe that's it. Possibly. I hadn't thought about that. Let's see, the second time they went to battle, the first time they sent Judah. The second time, I don't believe it says who went. So we don't know, but that is interesting. The concubine was from Judah. Maybe there is. Aaron, go ahead.
I was thinking that this story may have been in some way a fulfillment of what Jacob said in Genesis 49. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, and at the evening dividing the spoil.
Oh, I think there very well could be a connection to what Jacob said in giving these statements about all of his family. And I wonder if Judah, there's something there about him as well, possibly. Yeah, go ahead.
You said they had 400,000 men.
Yeah.
And they lost, 2,000 something in the first attack and backed off.
22,000 and then 18,000.
Yeah, and they backed off and lost.
Yep.
I'm wondering whether, look at the logistics of moving 400,000 people. My suspicion would be that they'd sent in smaller groups, and then when that got beat up, they've sent in a larger group, and so on.
Well, that certainly is true in that Judah went by itself the first time and lost. That's a fact. Second time, we don't know who, but that's interesting. Brad?
Hope I can make this make sense. But sometimes we read these numbers, and they just kind of flow off the tongue, and we don't really think about. But
right.
These numbers are astronomical in the deaths, and maybe God is trying to tell them and us the heinousness of sin and how deeply it needs to be punished and taken seriously, with 18,000 and 20,000 people being killed, and then the 10,000 Benjamites, and then they're nearly wiped completely out.
Absolutely.
This is serious business. I mean, imagine all those dead bodies just laying all over the place, and the aftermath, and the blood and guts and flies and whatever else. Folks, you need to deal seriously with sin.
No doubt.
And what this poor woman went through because of your all's pathetically sick minds now.
Yeah.
So let's take this serious.
I think you're exactly right. It probably still is tied to every man did what was right in his own eyes. This is God's judgment. No doubt about it. Sin is terrible. We got to take it seriously. Good.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of saying what everybody else has, but I find it fascinating. They didn't ask God what to do. They got an army together and said, all right, God, what do you want us to do? And so I think it goes back to doing what's right in your own eyes. Had they asked God, what should we do, and inquired as they should have, I imagine that these lives wouldn't have been lost if they had done that first before, hey, we're raring to go, what do you want us to do now?
Good job. To me, that's the answer. I think what happened was the first 17 verses of chapter 20 is about the people deciding, here's what we're going to do. They raised an army, they got everybody excited, they got everybody upset, they're all ready to go, and I mean, this is a nationwide thing now. Everybody knows what's happening. And all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, let's ask God. What if they had stopped at the very beginning and said, God, number one, we've been doing what's right in our own eyes for all this time, and we're sorry. What if they'd stopped and said, it's time for personal repentance? We have to get right with the Lord. Our brethren over here are doing this, and it's wrong, but look what we've been doing. And if they had done that and then asked God what to do, now all of a sudden, even if God had used the very same thing that they had now put together, God might have raised that very same army to do what they did, but now would have been God's army doing God's work. Which in effect it did, because 40,000 of them were lost. And Linda Carroll might be right on that. God took a tithe for the way they had been living. He took a tithe when they were destroyed. But then he went over and above that because he allowed the Benjamites almost to be wiped out. And so I do think that that's the answer. I think what we have to understand, and this is why maybe this is why these chapters are at the end of Judges as well. Because right after this, right after the period of the Judges that are recorded in that book, we're going to go into Samuel. And we're going to see the final guy heading to the time of the kings. And the whole point of the book of Judges is when people do what they want to do without a guide, without a ruler, they will become that kind of people. See, so right over there. They will become just exactly what we see here. And so it is a warning. It is a statement about how bad sin is. It is a statement about how God is going to punish. And so we're supposed to learn that lesson, and so that's very good.
So two things. One thing I find interesting is they didn't even ask God what they should do, as stated earlier. Literally, they just asked who should go first.
That's true.
But
good point.
They do get to their senses, and it does seem like God did want this punishment for Benjamin, because later on in chapter 20, the people of Benjamin are our relatives, and they ask God, should we go again to fight against them, or should we stop fighting? And God responded, go tomorrow, and I will help you defeat them.
There you go. So now they are saying, now it's not what we want, it's more what you want. Do we keep fighting or do we stop? They've been defeated twice. Maybe that's the information God wants us to stop. Good point. Go ahead.
And looking back over the passage, the first time when they were inquiring of the Lord, their question was, who goes first? But after the two big days of defeat, they wept until evening.
Yep.
And then inquired what the Lord wanted them to do.
Yeah, it produced in them the kind of thing they should have had for the way they had been living the whole time. Sadness, grieving. We've sinned, we need to change. So, all right. We've had a good study of the book of Judges. Oh, Mark's going to close us out.
Just one final question, observation, whatever. How did each man doing what was right in his own eyes change once they had a king?
Well, I think it's almost a rhetorical question. It didn't change a lot, but at least there was now a person and a standard to appeal to. Instead of each person being his own standard, there was this standard, and now you're subject to it. Oh, the whole time, yes. That's exactly right. That's right. But then again, how have things changed in our day any worse than that? Are we still doing what's right in our own eyes? Yeah, still are.